we'll now have a chance to apply some of the techniques we showed you in the smartphone interview class with a DSLR shoot. DSLRs have longer lenses that allow for the classic interview look, and we'll show you how to do it.
We begin our DSLR interview filming tutorial with one of the classics, the day exterior interview. With this setup, you'll be using the natural environment, so there's a few considerations you have to take into mind. Background, shade on your subject, audio. But when mastered properly, you can film a great-looking interview with a very simple setup.
We'll begin as always with a review of some of the key concepts we'll be covering in this lesson. Let's get to it. With a DSLR interview, as with all interviews, choosing your location is key. You'll want to have a place with good, quiet audio. You'll be using the interview over different shots throughout your film, so you have to think about that. You'll also look for a place that has shade for your subject. Putting your subject in bright sunshine doesn't make them comfortable and doesn't look good on camera. In terms of framing, as with an iPhone, you'll want to have your subject look slightly off camera. You want to adjust the camera and the light so that the subject could have soft light on their face.
Again, background is very, very important because a bright background will draw the audience's eye away from your interview subject. So ideally, you'll find a dark background. With your DSLR, you'll be able to throw it out of focus, which kind of helps for drawing the audience's attention to the subject. Now, remember to check your audio. You're going to be using your lavalier microphone, of course. And as always, you want to check the levels before you start the interview so that you make sure that the audio is of good quality. Also, with a DSLR, it's very important that you check the focus. We've talked about it before with smartphones, but on a DSLR, it's extra important because the shot is going to be tighter and any bit of softness in the focus will come through. On DSLRs, there's often a setting where you're able to zoom into the subject's eyes, adjust your focus, make sure it's crisp, and then zoom out and get the interview going.
Hair, makeup, and wardrobe shouldn't be overlooked. Bring as part of your kit makeup in several natural skin tones, and remember, advise the people you'll be interviewing to wear solid color shirts or clothes. Stripes or clothes with text on them are often very distracting. And also bring a comb. You hate to do a nice long interview with a fantastic and intelligent subject and have the viewer be distracted by hair that's out of place. And remember, performance is key. While you'll want to be looking after technical issues and audio and lighting and everything else, when it all comes down to it, it's all about performance and connecting with your subject. So keep this in mind. When it's all said and done, forget about the technical stuff and make that human connection. That's where you're going to capture magic moments for your film.
With all of these elements in mind, let's look at what we did in a real-world setting with our interview subject. So now we're going to talk about one of the key parts of the documentary, the interview, and in particular, the daytime interview, where you're able to use the natural light outdoors to light it. You're not worried about setting up lights to do so. So there's a few things to keep in mind when you're filming this interview. First is the audio. You want to select as quiet of a place as possible. We are in Central Park, so that can be hard to find, but we've found a relatively quiet spot. The next thing is shade for the subject so that the person that you're interviewing isn't in direct sunlight. That's never attractive for the person. It's also pretty hard to sit through. And then the third thing is a dark background behind the subject so that when you're shooting it, the eye isn't distracted by what's behind the subject. So the spot we found checks all three of those boxes at least pretty well. Let's take a look at it with the setup.
Brian has been able to find a spot in busy Central Park that meets his requirements for the interview. Looking at it from a side angle, it doesn't seem particularly special, but Brian knows he only needs to find a spot with good clean audio that allows for soft light on the subject's face and a dark out-of-focus background over his shoulder for a good interview. This spot will actually be perfect.
So we got our spot here. I'm just going to raise the tripod up to about eye level with Claire here so we can conduct our interview.
In setting up the interview, you want to have your subject fill about a third of the frame and look at you just off the edge of the lens. This is called setting the correct eye line, and it's crucial for your documentary to have the correct look.
I'll be to the left of the camera here. She'll be looking at me just off screen. So that's a nice eye line for the interview. Kind of your classic interview eye line. Let's see here. So then I'm going to zoom in and make sure the focus is good. That is a key element. So I'm able to zoom in here on the camera. There's a zoom function. Make sure that that focus on her eyes is nice and crisp.
Once we have the eye line, background, and focus set, we need to add the lav microphone. In a noisy place like Central Park, this will be crucial for getting good audio. We'll be careful to clip it where it won't be noticed in the shot. Having nice clean audio will allow him later to edit the interview over images from other places and times to create a smooth flow for the documentary when people watch it later on. It's important to check audio levels in the camera and in the headphones. And with this, Brian is ready to film his interview.
Well, I think so many people come from other places and come to New York, and I think we all crave home and some semblance of home.
As the interview rolls, you need to think about the content and questions you'll ask, and also keep an eye on audio, focus, and framing. All of these things need to be good and working together for your interview to work.
Central Park is such a place for people to come to reconnect with really simple pleasures.
A lot of people talk about inequality of access to green spaces. Can you say something about your feelings on that?
It's the same as kind of food inequality that we're experiencing, where these organic grocery stores are available only in rich neighborhoods, and then you go into a poorer neighborhood or a less developed country and you don't have access to your fruits and vegetables, something that we are just told that you need.
Well, we hope this overview of how to film a day exterior DSLR interview was helpful. It's one of the most classic situations you'll encounter in most documentary shoots, so it's one that you want to feel comfortable with.